I'm gonna do a little quick sharpening video here with the 2-in-1. I know there's guys out there that like to file everything by hand, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for a quick touch-up, like what I'm gonna do here, I think this is a viable tool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the one side, sharpen all the teeth, and do the raker. Then I'll flip it around and the vice the other way, and do the teeth and do the rakers, and we should be good. Let's see how long it takes with this thing. Okay, here's my tooth here. You can't see it on camera, but I got it marked. So we just come in here, we line it up, and we're going to take off a couple strokes here. And that looks sharp, about 4 strokes. That's what I like to keep my chain at. You know, a lot of guys, they just want to run the heck out of it. Guys, you get a tank of fuel, trust me, you're better off doing it 3 or 4 strokes. Your tooth will last a hell of a lot longer because you're not taking off all that material, and there's not a lot of sharpening to do. Your files will last a lot longer. So we did the 1 tooth here. Let's get to business here. Let's see what it takes, how long it takes us here. Now you're not taking much off the raker because you're not really taking that much off the tooth, so you could probably skip this step with this chain. But I like to, have everything uniform for, testing purposes or whatnot. This way I know what I have every time. It's the same. I mean, if you start introducing more variables into things, then you can get confused because you don't really know what one thing does over the other. Okay, so we're done with this side. Oh, wait a minute, I gotta get this tooth, hang on. There we go. Now I just took off a fuzz. I probably took off, a thousandths or two of material. And I took off maybe 4 or 5 thousandths of material off the tooth. But if you do this, your saw will cut better, and your chain will last a long time. I mean, if you go in there and you, well, I'm going to make a day of cutting out of it, and just beat the heck out of the chain, you know, you get home, you're going to have big hunks missing and whatnot, and you're going to go through a hell of a lot more chain. Okay, this is decent. Maybe I can move the camera. I went out and bought a tripod here. Maybe I can move the camera here. All right, we'll do the other side here. Now this is a 25-inch bar, which is actually 24, which with the dogs is probably about, well, I don't know, 22 inches of cut with this saw. It all depends. And this is always nice to have one of these lights, the flexible. This is a 100-watt bulb. And you can really, it lights it up so you can see. The whole thing is you got to be able to see. If you can't see what you're doing, the whole thing's in the garbage. Let me get the orientation. All right, here we go. And we'll do this side. Now I'm actually a little better. I'm working on my left, but the right seems to be easier for me because it's just more natural. Ideally, you want to get everything perfect on both sides, but you know, as long as she cuts, we can live with a couple of hairs, you know. And all I'm doing here is just taking off a fuzz. Maybe a couple, 2 human hairs. So you're not really taking off a lot of metal, but the metal you're taking off is enough to get the tooth nice and sharp, which is what you want. I mean, if you don't have a good chain, you know, everything else is in the garbage pretty much, I think. You could have all the horsepower in the world if your chain doesn't cut. What good is it? And you kind of develop a feel of how much that thing is taken off. Now, like I said, there's some guys that do it by hand with a file, and they can do it better than this. There's no doubt about it. And we got stuck here. Okay. But ask them how many years they've been doing it. I would say that this tool is a good buy. If you learn how to use it, it's a good buy. I took the middle file out, the one that automatically does the rakers, because I found that being heavy-handed, ham-handed like I am, I would take too much off. And some guys will say, well, it's not progressive. Okay, well, you know, I mean, once the chain gets down, I agree. You have to switch over because you're trying to hold an angle. So the chain's sharp. I mean, it's pretty sharp. You know, I blew about 7/8 of a tank, and the chain was just starting to get dull. So I'll fill it up again. It finished the job here, and when I go cutting tomorrow, this thing's gonna cut. I'm gonna put a lot of wood on the ground. I would say probably with the wood I'm cutting, about a tank of fuel. But with that tank of fuel, you know, if you're working hard and you're planning out what you're doing, you have your logs laid out, I mean, you can cut at least 2 face cords, 3-4 face cords out of it, you know. But anyways, let's do the rakers on these here. The clock's running. I said, how long is it going to take me to finish the job? And here I am rambling on. Well, what are you going to do? And I'm not really taking much off the rakers, again, because, you know, I didn't take much off the teeth. That's the whole thing. Now, if you run into a nail or what can you do? What I do in that situation is I just work on that tooth or a couple teeth. But then you get into things with vibration, and people, they don't think about that. Yeah, I mean, the saw is going to still cut on the cheap, but you're going to get more punishment to your hands. I mean, that's what I do though. If I hit a nail or something, I'm not gonna, grind all the teeth down to that one size, because it but it does make a rougher cutting chain. It will put more hurt on your hands, because if you understand how these chains work, they're porpoising around in there, and you really have to study the chain. The chain's actually like, it's grabbing wood, and the other tooth on the other side is grabbing a piece, and it's like a planer. And you have to have your depth gauge set. You have to have a properly prepared chain. Let me put it that way. And I'll leave it at that. Or a properly worked over chain. Otherwise, all the porting schemes, and it's in the garbage. I mean, there's guys out there that can sharpen these chains better than me and can run a stock saw, and they'll be right with me with my ported saw. There's no doubt about it, or even beat me, because they have the chain and they understand the relationship of their engine, and they have it tuned to the wood they're cutting. And that's another thing too. You see some of these guys in different areas, Pacific Northwest, up in BC, and then we're over here on the East Coast with hardwood. The saws are not going to run the same. You look at. I'm going to tell you right now. There's no way that you're going to take this saw and a piece of hard maple and just hold it with one hand on the bottom here and let it fall through. It's not going to do it. In your wood, yes. And we know that because we see the video. I'm just saying, some of this hard maple, it freezes. This stuff is like a rock. I mean, even if you're dogging it in, it don't want to cut. Going through knots and whatnot, But I don't know. What do we have? Maybe 10, 15 minutes? I'm just guessing. And I have a chain. I'm ready to cut for tomorrow. And I'll gas and oil it up, and I'll go cut. And I love it. I enjoy it. But there's so much to learn with these saws and whatnot. There's so much to learn, and once you think you've got it figured out, well, you find out that you don't. But that's part of the fun too. I really enjoy these. When I was a younger guy, I was out there on the dirt bikes and the quads and that. And at my age, I could still do it. I'd have to go out and buy a pair of boots and a helmet, but I'd jump on a 250 or 500 dirt bike or a Banshee or whatever, rip around like nothing. I could do it. Maybe not as long, It's kind of like, here's my saying. I could do a full 8 hours worth of work at my age. It just takes me 2 days. All right, folks. You have a good night.